Wolverine!
AppStateCentral.com weekly podcast.
All right, and good evening, and welcome to the 9th installment of the AppStateCentral.com weekly podcast. As always, a big thank you to our Marching Mountaineers and Appalachian Sports Network for providing the sound clips you just heard in that intro. This is Bryden, and along with me is my co-host, Mike. Mike, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Good to hear. So, Mike is one dedicated co-host here. He's Mike. Where are you located at tonight? Where are you broadcasting from?
Yeah, I'm actually out of town for work, so I'm broadcasting live from sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out, even with this work engagement and helping me out with it a little bit tonight. Mike will have to leave during the middle of the show, so later on you'll be stuck with just me. But so. As we know, on Saturday, the Mountaineers put together a last-minute drive engineered by Jamal Jackson, and it culminated with a 22-yard touchdown catch by Sean Price that led us to the win, 28-25 victory on the road over Samford. And tonight we're going to go ahead and review that win and talk about the huge Southern Conference matchup against Wofford this weekend. As of this point, the biggest game of the season for us. And then we're also going to take a time to speak with Appalachian State legend Richie Williams. He was kind enough to do an interview with us, so that'll be nice to hear that. But before we begin, Mike, go ahead and give our listeners a reminder about how to reach us via the social media.
Yeah, that's as always. If you want to interact with us during the show or anytime throughout the week, you can send us a tweet at App State Central or post on our Facebook wall at facebook.com/AppStateCentral. We always welcome feedback and suggestions. So if you guys do read the website or listen to the show, please stop in and give us a shout if you can.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. And I basically reiterate everything Mike said. Please stop by and talk to us. We love talking to all the App fans. So please interact with us during, after, before the show, at all times. Just interact with us. And this week, we're going to go ahead and kick off the show with a new Around the SoCon segment. We did it once before, and we're going to go ahead and continue that. And that just kind of allows you to get caught up on the other action around the conference, and it includes, this week is going to include the breakdown of the huge game in Statesboro that has championship implications for the SoCon, and it was against Georgia Southern and Wofford. And we'll also talk about the other SoCon games as well. So, Mike, go ahead and give us your take on the other games and how the SoCon picture is shaping up.
Yeah, there were some very interesting developments this weekend. First, Chattanooga went down to Greenville and beat Furman pretty handily. 31-10 was the final. Jacob Huseman had a huge day. Passing, he had 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rushed for another 59. Actually had 32 receiving yards. On top of that, he was the Southern Conference Freshman of the Week this week. And Terrell Robinson, who, as we all know, has kind of been splitting duties with him at quarterback, had a good day as well. He had had 86 passing yards, 29 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. So his biggest impact came in the receiving game. He had 89 receiving yards and caught 2 touchdown passes. So it'll be interesting to see what develops down in Chattanooga. I mean, it looks like Robinson's got the raw tools to be a great wide receiver, and whether they continue to rotate him in and out of quarterback or leave him at wide receiver remains to be seen. But Chattanooga they've got a tough road ahead of them. They still got Samford, Georgia Southern, and Wofford on the schedule, but they only have one conference loss, which was to us. So they're still even though they're going to have to win out to really have a chance to make the playoffs in any fashion, whether it's an at-large or the auto bid. They are still alive. They've got a tough road to deal with, but they've turned things around with a couple of pretty convincing wins over the Citadel and Furman. And speaking of the Citadel, they got back in the win column over the weekend. They beat Western Carolina 45-31. Now, this is a game that was tied going into the fourth quarter, so Western Carolina has made some improvements. They did hang with the Citadel. Whether that's more a sign of how much the Catamounts have improved or how much the Citadel has continued to struggle since that game in Boone. And it's kind of hard to tell at this point, but it was a good game, very competitive until late into the game. Darian Robinson had 116 rushing yards and a touchdown. Ben Dupree, who we all remember from the show he put on a Boone, had 96 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And the highlight of the weekend, outside of the Appalachian game for us, was the big showdown with Wofford and Georgia Southern. And that was a real kind of old school football game. Georgia Southern won that 17-9. And that broke a 3-game winning streak for Wofford, actually in Statesboro. And one interesting thing about this game is Georgia Southern won the game, had 265 rushing yards, and they did not attempt a single pass the whole game. That's something you almost never see. Even for a triple option team, they didn't throw one pass the entire game. They were led by sophomore Dominique Swope, and she's a great running back for him. He had 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wofford had 248 total yards. Didn't get in the end zone. They scored all their points on field goals. Eric Bretstein had 13 carries for 102 yards. So statistically had himself a pretty good game, but didn't get the amount of touches he's used to. Most of that came on one run. I believe he went for 65 yards. So he was outside of that one big run was held in check. And more importantly, he is questionable going into the Appalachian game this weekend. He suffered an ankle injury down there. To be honest, I'd be pretty surprised if he actually ended up sitting this game out. But he is listed as questionable. And their starting left tackle is an all-conference player. Calvin Cantrell suffered a concussion, unfortunately, down there. So he is definitely going to miss the Appalachian game, possibly a couple more weeks as well. So with that win, Georgia Southern gave Wofford their first conference loss. So that leaves Georgia Southern, Wofford, Chattanooga, and Appalachian all with one loss in conference.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for that recap there. So as Mike said, that basically a 4-way tie right now with us, Georgia Southern, Wofford, and Chattanooga all having one loss. Like Mike said, Chattanooga has a much more difficult road to go through to continue that first place finish. But it's definitely a toss-up at this point in the Southern Conference. And what I love about, believe it or not, Georgia Southern, I was rooting for them to win that game because now that if we win out, we will get the automatic bid. So because that would give Georgia Southern and Wofford both 2 losses, and Chattanooga, even if they continue to win out, they would still only have 1 loss, but to us, so we'd win that tiebreaker and get that auto bid. So it's huge for us, and I'm excited to see this team play this Wofford this upcoming week, because the triple option, as we all know, absolutely dominated us with the Citadel. And so Wofford plays a similar offense, runs a similar offense, but in my opinion, they're better at it. So it's going to be interesting to see. But before we talk about that, let's go ahead and talk about this last weekend's game in Alabama. And we beat Samford with the final score of 28-25, like we talked about. And Sean Price had an incredible grab on a 22-yard touchdown with 22 seconds left from Jamal Jackson that won the game for us. There was controversy for a while about if Sean Price was actually in the end zone, and the GoASU.com released a picture that proved that he was in. So that was good to see, and that kind of cleared all controversy at all. But, Mike, what did you take from this game?
Well, it was, first in regards to that play with Sean Price, I'll be completely honest, watching that game live, I didn't think there was any way his foot landed in bounds. It was kind of an odd angle, but, the way that he was heading, I didn't think there's any way he could have possibly landed in bounds. And obviously, there's been photo evidence released that showed otherwise, and really just an incredibly athletic move from him. That's just an amazing balance, because he was up in the air, he was stretched out, he got the ball, and was still able to get 1 foot in bounds, even with all his momentum carrying him out of bounds. So, an incredible catch by Price. He really just continues to impress as a freshman. He, with the exception of the one game against Elon where he was, somewhat held in check, mostly because he was double covered the whole day and, opening up some holes for Peacock in Washington. He's really been, he's made a big impact on this team, and that was a really clutch catch. And it was, that last drive was really gutsy. I mean, we were up 21-10, going into the second half. And, we missed a field goal at halftime that kind of, breathed a little bit of new life into Samford. We, had a scoreless third quarter, and Samford put up 2 quick touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and seemingly, just the snap of a finger, they were up 25-21, and we really had our backs against the wall, and even though our offense had struggled mightily in the second half, I think it shows a lot about, the poise of Jamal Jackson and really the character of this team as a whole, that, they were able to keep their composure and drive down the field and really, put together a clutch drive, because not only was the game on the line, but, in all reality, our season was on the line with that game, because if we go down there and we take that second conference loss with Georgia Southern and Wofford still on the schedule, chances are slim to none that we win the conference, and frankly, chances are pretty slim we even get to the postseason at that point. It's just a big confidence booster for this team. It's a big win on the road against a quality team. That's we made our mistakes throughout the game. We were really sluggish in the second half, particularly the third quarter offensively, but we made plays when it mattered, and I thought it was overall a really, really encouraging performance.
Yeah, it was a great performance, and I mean, really, we dominated most of the game up until the fourth quarter, and Samford, like, it seems like every team that we play, they pull out everything they possibly can. They pulled out a trick play to get a first down, and I mean, they never gave up, and I think that's just a factor of their coaching. But one thing that I took from the game that I thought was absolutely huge, especially going into the Wofford game, is we held Fabian Truss to very, very little rushing yards. He had a solid receiving game, but his rushing, I mean, arguably he's the second best running back in the SoCon behind Breitenstein, who we're coming up against again in Wofford. But we held him to only 49 yards, 46 yards total, and his longest was only 11 yards. He only averaged 2.6 yards per carry, and to me that's huge, because he is a large portion of their offense, and I think that kind of set the tone of their offense. And then going into the fourth quarter, when they took out all the bells and whistles in order to beat us, try to catch up and beat us, that's when they really started playing, just because they caught us off guard, I thought. But stopping Fabian Truss was huge.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Obviously, the fourth quarter drive by the offense was incredible. That was a clutch performance. It obviously put the game away. It allowed us to escape with a one-loss record in conference intact. But really, the defense is the reason we won that game. That drive does not happen if our defense didn't play as well as they did. They played great against the run all day. And most importantly, one thing that was, really I think a testament to the character of our defensive line is that Samford wins that game if they can get 1 yard on two consecutive plays, and we were able to stop them twice, on 2nd and 1 and on 3rd and 1, to force that punt to even give us a chance to have that final drive to win that game. And if it were not for Ronald Blair, who came back in even after he hurt himself, and Adam Scott and Devontae Harris, who got in the backfield and made those tackles and made sure they didn't get that first down, we're going to be singing a whole different tune today. And it really is, it made a huge difference, because Samford had that game. They were very, very close to putting us away, and like I said, if they just gotten a couple of yards, that would have been all she wrote for us, and we'd be having a serious uphill climb. We would have no more margin for error the rest of this season. And the performance by the defense, and of course we have to mention the first half. We weren't even on the board until Joel Ross had a pick six. So he came out with a big play. He played great out of the start position all year. Adam Scott had 3 sacks. With Deuce Robinson being out, and him and Greg Hall had to play a much bigger role. Greg Hall almost had a safety. I think it probably should have been a safety. It was very close, but he got a sack as well. Adam Scott got 3. So when we had a guy go down, we had a couple other guys really step up, play very well, and